That's on the tapes.
We're gonna have to pivot away from 70s politics because we'll get canceled immediately. So
welcome to While We're Recording. Today we're talking about Fullmetal, Alchemist, Brotherhood, and totally not things that will get us canceled.
Not American politics circa 1971.
Right. It's historical, okay? Like, we weren't espousing any.
I was going to say, depending on which side we come down on, we won't get canceled. We'll get praised.
Well, yeah. Help, the woke culture is trying to cancel us or something. So,
listen, the woke culture is always trying to cancel us.
That's a good way to make some money. You got to grift the far right.
Right.
That's a good way to make some money.
We could do that.
Would anybody? Well, never mind. That I was going to get a prop, but I dropped it. So I was like, "Oh, did you want to see my Bible? With my name and face on it." So,
the Justin Bible,
right? I'll sell it to Oklahoma?
A nickel.
So, yeah.
Actually, I'd buy that just to send it to Andreas.
Like when you move to your state, it's like you get handed a personal Bible.
Well, see, the funny thing about that is it's in my state, it's a real thing, but it's not driven technically by the state government because we still, have separation of church and state, even though the local religion is, the local religion is very prolific and, over the top. But certainly if you go through high school, there are enough practicing missionaries that, all you have to do is say, hey, I don't have a copy of XYZ book, and one will just manifest. So,
Also, there's plenty of roadside motels with Bibles in them in every state, so you can just go pick one up if you really want.
Yeah, the Gideons are pretty good about putting that stuff out there. So, yeah.
I was just about to say that we delayed long enough for Ben to have his stuff fixed, and then he disappeared right away.
We did, and then we went on too long, and it unfixed itself.
Half a second too long. All right. We are supposed to be talking, as his name you could briefly see, about FMA, and I have all my notes.
That's not a Bible.
So
for the listeners, that sound was Alex vigorously shaking her notes.
Notes. That's the key word there, not the vigorously shaking.
No, vigorously was the important part.
Okay. So we're talking about Newtonian physics today.
Yes, and how it killed Maze Hughes in the end.
Well, unfortunately, but yes.
We already kind of discussed Mace Hughes' death, although
when you put on that uniform, you can expect to die.
All right, so episodes from 15 through 26, because we did all the way up through 14, which is basically...
Did we get that far? Look at us, 2 weeks in a row. Well, 3, because we had to have an interlude.
Yes.
Yeah.
And really, it's, Dresden
26?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm counting last week because we got complimented for being so productive.
Oh,
then I'm one episode behind because some reason I thought 25.
Slacker.
Yeah, no, through 26. It was on the Notion document if you decided to pay attention to your homework.
I didn't. I'm doing Dresden homework. Sorry.
I was going to say, and I didn't, even though I kept getting emails about it. I was just like, stop it. And so I signed in again.
I wonder where those emails are going because I didn't recall.
What, your Notion emails?
Yeah.
And we'll check your spam.
Okay.
So this is fun. All right, so episode 15 was we get the introduction of several characters because it's Envoy from the East. We get to meet Mei and the panda, Xiao Mei, and Ling and Fu.
The third best character in the movie or the series.
Lanfang.
I like the way that panda recognizes and solves problems. Can I eat it or can I not eat it?
Oh, and top of the food chain. Can't eat it. That's my new homie.
That's the boss now.
Yeah.
Listen, the world would be a lot simpler if we could just go by that Xiaomei hierarchical structure.
In this world, we may want to sidestep that because, gluttony is around. So, he's got a really big list of, I can eat it, and therefore I am the top dog. So,
well, he's got a portal inside of him. That's not unwarranted.
Right.
Is he technically eating it then if he's putting it in a portal to an extra dimension?
Well, he eats it. When he absorbs it, that's just consuming it. There's a difference, but it's only a technical one.
Yeah.
Yeah. he did the chewing. I feel like that counts. So
he does have a lot of teeth to do the chewing.
That's true, and there are teeth when he opens up into that eye thing. So
yeah, that all makes sense. We meet Xiao Mei because Scar was fighting it's like Mr. Peanut looking alchemist something or other, and he gets injured. And
Mr. Peanut
he looks like that. It's just, whatever. I forgot his name.
The Silver Alchemist. I don't remember his nickname, but that's his title. He's the Silver Alchemist.
He just looked funny.
I thought he was really cool with his peg leg. He's spinning around like a top.
He could be both, but there's this moment that I think is really funny of when Scar sees the tiny panda on May's shoulder. He has like this intense reaction, and he's like reaching out to touch the panda. Presumably, like he wanted to pet the cute thing, and that's what causes May to see his tattoos and understand that it was like a blending of alchemy and alchemy. It's very weird. Let's see. So then Hawkeye was walking home from like a grocery store or something with her Shiba Inu dog and gets attacked by Barry the Chopper. And she is not startled at all by the fact that he has a suit of armor because she knows Alphonse, and he also knows Alphonse. And then they start talking, and he decides he has a major crush on her.
Pour one out for my homie Barry. Like, he was growing on me.
Yeah, totally.
He wasn't growing at all. He was a suit of armor.
Growing on me. I didn't say he was literally growing. Keep up.
He wasn't growing on you either. You weren't wearing him. 0 for 2.
And I'm the one with the autism.
Probably.
Damn.
So Mustang decides to take Barry into a safe house with his people and really bore out that one guy because he's just like alone in a safe house with Barry and playing chess because he's got nothing else to do. But he's still asking about Hughes's murder because he's never getting over that. Ed and Al in Rush Valley run into Ling, and Al has this thing of like picking up stray cats and stray people and wanting to help them. And Ling is that because he's starving in an alleyway and he eats a mountain full of food and likes to leave Ed with the bill. But Ling from Xing, the fake China, essentially is immediately looking for the Philosopher's Stone, and he asks the first alchemist that he meets, I guess, of like, do you know anything of this thing that is super taboo and hard to find?
And little did he know, it was actually the right guy to talk to.
Yeah. I mean, because that's the thing. In Xing, all of the princes and princesses know that you can just buy alchemy stones, everywhere. They're just in the shops. So.
Then they run around Rush Valley, destroying the whole city, fighting each other. And Ed had already injured his arm, fighting in the 5th lab, I guess, to be able to needing to go to Winry to get it fixed. And he just decides to cut off his right arm, hide it in a trap to get Lanfan stuck to win the fight. And it just like, he's so willing to do that. And then he walks into Winry's place holding the arm, beating Ling with it after he finds him again. And she sees the whole arm completely disattached and starts beating shit at him with a wrench.
I think that my favorite version yet of her kicking Ed's ass with a wrench is one of the later episodes where she hits him because and Al is like, I got your soul, brother, and
right
pops it back into him.
Yeah, that one's hilarious.
Yeah. And after the town has been destroyed and everything needs to get fixed up, and the townspeople are about to have a riot on Ed and Al for all of the destruction, Ling helpfully says, I'm a foreigner and I don't speak your language, bye, and just disappears.
Playing the dumb foreigner card.
Oh, yeah. But they all decide to go back to Central to do important things and also to see Mace Hughes because they don't know he's dead yet.
I'd forgotten they didn't know, so I was like, oh no.
Where's my best friend Mace Hughes at?
Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah. And Ling immediately gets arrested as a foreigner without paperwork. So he's in jail. Sheska is covering for Mustang, doing research, trying to figure out what the hell that Mace Hughes had figured out that got him killed immediately. And then Mustang also gets sort of talking to by Armstrong of take care of yourself. Are you sleeping enough? Are you eating enough? And Mustang confronts him of like something with the conspiracy that's in the Philosopher's Stone and the Fifth Lab, and something with the Fuhrer. Am I all right? And Armstrong is able to kind of say yes without directly going against the Fuhrer's orders of don't talk to anybody. And they are really good at speaking in code to each other.
I mean, yeah. What they all need to do is they all need to stand in front of a map thinking really hard until, till somebody shakes something loose. But like, hey, get me about 11 alchemists, and then let's all just stare at this map until something, connects here. So
yeah.
Mace, you're back.
But he's dead.
His microphone's not working. He can't speak from beyond the grave. Oh.
But at least we've got his pretty face here. And that smile. I mean, just look at that. So
if you get some giant cue cards and start scribbling them out, you could like maybe get a comment of relevance in before we move on from the topic.
So Mustang asks Armstrong to not tell the Elric brothers that Hughes is dead for a while because he wants them to not do anything stupid, which they kind of immediately do. But when Mustang runs into them in the hallway, he says that Hughes retired to the country and he
went to a farm upstate.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just a little disappointed. They wanted to see him, and Winry was going to be confused, and she goes to try to find them. And they run into Ross, who later gets accused of murdering him. And she gives away, yes, he got a 2 higher rank promotion. It's like, you don't usually do that for someone who retires. And then she puts together what Mustang had done, and she feels terrible. They put together everything, and they run to the apartment to try to catch Winry, and also to apologize to the Mustang family.
Oh my God, Ross, who died. So
yeah.
Funny you say that. It was Mace Hughes. Yeah. The very person you were just talking about.
Some very tearful moments with Gracia and Alicia, and they decide to be entirely truthful to his widow of he was helping them try to get their bodies back, and it was a huge conspiracy, and he was murdered for it. And she tells them to continue going and pursuing trying to get their bodies back, because otherwise his death is meaningless. He spent his life helping people. He spent his death helping people. She wants that to continue. And then she's heard crying as they're leaving, while the little girl is trying to comfort her.
I don't think we see them again until the eclipse, right?
A little bit. Winry hangs out with them a little bit.
Right.
I was thinking that full arc for these guys is kind of left a little lacking afterwards. So I was going to make some comments about that, but spoilers.
Well, if it had gone on and there had been a time skip, obviously the kid would have grown up and become an alchemist too, and would have gone on adventures with Al.
You think so?
Probably not, but who knows?
So, Envy gets an idea to try to keep Mustang contained. Envy has been stalking Mustang and saying, like, he's going to put things together. He's going to be a pain in the ass. And so we need to do something to keep him from digging too much and do too many issues. And so Maria Ross is arrested for the murder of Mace Hughes. And they have all the evidence of, it's very clever plan of like, they know that she could have been seen being there because Envy put her face on for a little bit to try to track down Hughes and get him cornered. So they say that there was a witness. Maybe there was, maybe there was. I don't think it actually stated. There was a bullet that she had fired at the fifth lab that they can't find, and the lab was destroyed. So there's like the evidence is gone. So her report doesn't make any sense according to everyone else. And you are shown this first from how it is seen from the outside. Of Mustang tracks Ross down and breaks her out of jail using Barry the Chopper, because why not? And Barry also gets Ling out of jail at the same time. And Mustang corners her in an alleyway and burns her to death. Like a horrible, crisp remains of a person.
I was so mad. I was so mad at this. I was like, man, like I kind of liked Mustang, but like I never assumed up through this point and everything like that he was necessarily a good guy. but that like you kind of mostly see his ambition, right? But he seems amiable enough and things like that, where like it's like, okay, his ambition's there, so maybe he's going to stab somebody in the back at some point. He's clearly gunning for the Führer's seat and whatever, but he's a friend of the heroes and whatever, so that makes him a good enough guy and whatever. But after he barbecued Ross, I was like, that son of a bitch, that firmly put him as a bad guy. So
right. And maybe did he possibly do some form of sleight of hand, something or other? But how could it be? Because the coroner confirms that it was Ross. The coroner confirms everything that Mustang is a bad guy, and Ed is furious at him, about to attack him. Armstrong is shaking with anger, and he's apologizing to Mustang for Ross's behavior of killing Hughes. And then Mustang says to Armstrong that you look very weary. You should go to the country for a vacation where there are a lot of beautiful women. And the coroner, Dr. Knox, which is Mustang's friend, said that Ross was a beautiful woman. And so Armstrong gets it within like a second. And the next day, like, walks into where Ed is staying, smacks his arm, says, declares it broken. We must go back to Risenbull to get it fixed. And Winry's sitting in the same room, going, what the fuck am I doing here?
Right. Like, I'm his personal mechanic.
Yeah, I'm right here. I came with him to help in situations like this. No. Yeah. And then Hawkeye is seen angrily taking a vacation from Mustang and slamming the doors and scaring everyone in her vicinity. And then Mustang is seen like loudly talking on the phone with his girlfriend, Elizabeth, or something.
Right.
Yeah. It's a lot of codes happening. And then Mustang is very happy. Like, now everyone is out of the way. Ed and Armstrong get to Risenbull, and they met up with Breda, one of Mustang's persons.
Could he be less subtle about that, by the way? We must go fix your... come on. Yep, we're going.
Yeah.
Subterfuge.
As a certain wizard in a different podcast that we've never heard of would say, fuck subtlety.
Yeah.
True.
Armstrong's
Just
not
gets
subtle.
right to the point.
Like, until he is.
Who needs subtlety when you're that glamorous?
Yeah. So with Breda and Fu, the old Chinese guy that was Ling, they go into the desert to Xerxes, which all the Jing had to cross over that gigantic desert anyway, so they know how to do it. And when they're there, Ross is alive, and Armstrong is seen chasing her around the ruins, wanting to give her a very muscly, sparkly hug, and she's running away from him. And Breda explains like the whole behind the scenes thing, that Mustang knew that it was fake. He knew that Ross didn't do anything. They had all of the components for a human body, made a meat puppet thing and burned that to get her through a hidden dumpster thing. And the fact that Elric was there kind of just sold the lie even further. But they then had to make sure he didn't do anything more stupid, which he's going to do. And then at the same time, Ling is explaining all of this to Al and Winry, so they're all on the same page. So Mustang and his team that are remaining in Central are using a bunch of code names of ladies' names, basically prostitutes, courtesans, those types of things of, I have a customer I have to deal with, for Hawkeye to say that she's now being attacked by somebody. And this is leaning into Mustang's womanizer reputation that he's always had. And the person that is attacking Hawkeye is actually Barry the Chopper's body. The body has now had like the soul of like a rat or something in it that's puppeting it around badly. Ed is attacked by Ishvalans in Xerxes and learns that the Winry's parents, the Rockbells, were doctors that were killed by Scar in the Ishvalan War. And episode 19, Death of the Undying, opens up with Mustang running to help Hawkeye in the combat of Barry's body attacking her, and Barry's body runs away, and then she immediately starts yelling at him. It's like, why would you do that? You got yourself in danger. I didn't need to do all those things. And like 30 seconds later, thanks him for it. I just love their relationship.
She's the bodyguard. She's supposed to die for you, not the other way around. So
yeah,
you know.
She really does not like him being in danger.
Is the
Al teams up with.
Just checking. if you got voice.
Nope,
Ben?
he did.
Because,
No, I'm here.
yeah,
It's
no
working. I
worries.
was just.
I
I was
heard
trying not to
typing.
interrupt.
Yeah, I was heard typing, so I just wanted
Yeah.
to be sure that he knew it was live.
Yeah, Andreas was interrupting on your behalf
Yeah, right.
because he's a bad person.
Because
Thank you,
otherwise,
Andre.
if he didn't realize it was working, and then the kid comes in and is making noise
Right.
and stuff, that would have been
Continue as you were.
How dare you assume he doesn't have a handle on his home life?
Thank you for not interrupting, so that Andreas had a chance to interrupt.
That's okay. I have no social graces, and everybody knows this already, so I can just do it. It's fine.
Okay.
Fucking foreigners, man.
So, Al is teaming up with Mustang and Hawkeye and Jean Havoc to chase down the homunculus and everything that's attacking in the city. Barry is going after his body, and he's thrilled, running through like a hospital. Like, where are you, my little meat pie? I want to cut you up so badly. He's so bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, insane. So he wants to chop everything, and obviously he is not exempt from everything, so
No,
he
but,
must
like,
chop himself.
Slicing up
So-
his own body is like the best thing that could ever happen to him. He's
Right.
thrilled.
I mean, you ever have those
Who's better
conversations where it's
qualified?
like, if you meet your doppelganger, do you kiss or whatever? Barry already knows the answer to this. He chops. So,
Barry the Chopper chops anything.
yeah. Right. He's not Barry the well-rounded.
That
He's
that
not
slap
Barry
chop
the-
device has nothing on him.
He's not Barry the mild. He's Barry the chopper, and he's gonna fucking chop. So
It's like that Spider-Man villain panel that gets circulated around every now and then of Dr. Sauron or whoever it is. Wait, you can rewrite people's DNA on the fly? With tech like that, you could cure cancer. I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs.
right.
Yeah,
So
I've
I
seen
really
that
try. He's
one.
got one piece. He knows exactly who he is. Knows exactly what he wants to do. Which
pretty much that's like every villain's origin story, right? It's like, but you could do this totally reasonable thing, but I don't want to. I want to make dinosaurs. That's like 80%
say
of
the
villains.
quiet part out loud is nice. I think with Barry the Chopper, what I've really grown to appreciate with the series and was doing the homework on this is how even those little minor characters will recur. Like we've seen some characters get in this segment get kicked out of the show only to come back later. And Barry the Chopper was basically, you thought it was kind of a one-off character, but then he comes back and is this supporting character until he literally dies.
He's a really fun supporting character. Like, adds a lot of flavor, insane flavor, but
right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and specifically because he's supposed to be the serial killer, but he's actually one of the least monstrous antagonists in the entire show. Like,
Well, I
I'd
mean, in
say so.
terms of on-screen body count, maybe.
well,
But
not
that's just
on-
because he doesn't actually really kill anyone. Like when we see him.
And he's so ineffectual, right? I mean, he got caught after all, right? So
Yeah, but doesn't he say how many he cut up when he's introduced? I don't remember.
sure, but
It
then
seemed
you
like
look
it was
at,
a lot.
But then you
I
look
mean,
at
one state alchemist is tripled his kill count. He's
exactly.
He's a chump compared to almost anyone else we see here.
Well, sure, he probably
doesn't
doesn't
have a
have
lot
as
of
high a
knowledge.
body count as Mustang, for instance,
And
who
even
can barbecue
aside
a
from-
population.
Just in terms of scheme and scope and perspective too, right? So like you have. I mean, you've all seen the show the whole way or no?
I've
No.
seen it before, but it's been a while, so I don't remember every little detail. But
Okay.
we
I
can
just
talk openly.
Okay, talking openly, because you've got the characters doing the giant human sacrifice on a national scale, or creating a nation with the sole purpose of sacrificing an entire population you cultivate within its boundaries. That's the scale of monstrosity we're usually dealing with the main antagonist of the show. And so Barry the Chopper's like, I don't know, I just kind of kill people. in a
No,
butcher
I
shop.
just the killing is an unfortunate side effect of
chopping.
chopping. Exactly. I was
Ah,
looking for
okay,
someone
fair
to
enough.
finish the sentence.
He's the chopper. He's not the killer. He's the chopper.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
he could also just
fair
work
enough.
in a kitchen if that's. But he
Right.
really, really
I
wants
think-
to cut
well,
up people.
He started
The-
as a butcher, right? So
Yeah.
like,
At least
that
the
was his
2003
thing.
one had a whole backstory with like being hunted by Barry the Chopper, and there was like the slabs of meat. I think he showed up a couple times.
It's just an unfortunate byproduct that when people get all of the blood outside of their body, that they die. And chopping tends to put a bunch of leaks into people, and then, totally accidental. But
yeah, but he isn't like mentally deranged. He's not like the Joker.
He's a
or
little
somebody.
mentally deranged.
I was going to say, of all the people, he's pretty clearly mentally deranged.
Yeah.
He's just not.
I mean, you can call him charming or whatever, but he's
No, he's a chump.
endearing.
I think
no,
chump
the
is
word
right
is
word.
endearing. He's amusing and endearing.
He's a
not-
chump. He's just a chump. Like I'm gonna hurt you. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna scare you. And then he doesn't get to, like, the first 3 or 4 times he tries that trick.
I don't think he ever tries. He never successfully scares anybody.
Once,
but he gets scared
does.
when Alphonse gets takes his head
He
off.
does scare when he breaks in. When he breaks into the prison, and there's just some rando military men. He finally gets it off once, and he scares everyone. Oh! It was like, and we're like cheering for him being able to scare people with his Halloween.
He's
trick.
Ghostface. He's a slasher with a personality. That's
Yeah,
all
but
the others are quiet.
Even like if Freddy Krueger has like a creepy malice to him. This guy's just a chump.
Freddy is fucking ridiculous.
Yes,
Right, I'm moving us forward because we got too much shit to cover.
Fair enough.
We got to chop this right here. So
yes,
let's put a chop to it.
So the next important moment, which is also very endearing in my mind, is so Havoc and Mustang kind of teamed up, and then Hawkeye and Al teamed up and running around underground, the hospital, something. So Havoc and Mustang run into Lust, and she's in her normal homunculus getup, which is because it was revealed that she was pretending to be Jane Havoc's girlfriend named Solaris. And her tattoo is right on the center of her chest, and she's quite well endowed. And Mustang is like, I see what happened. You love big boobs. And Havoc screams out, like, yes, I love big boobs. And it echoes throughout the tunnels and everything that they're in. One of my favorite moments of the series. I know I'm weird. But Lust reveals that she did not kill Hughes. That was somebody else. So Mustang is always on this crusade. He's never going to give it up. And they fight a bit. Lust makes a lot of water to kind of counter the fire that Mustang is going to use. And Gene Havoc still has his lighter, which is important. And Lust stabs Havoc, which is also extremely important. And they fight a lot. Lust takes away Mustang's glove, which means that he can't do the snap thing to make more fire, which is why the lighter is important. And then Lust goes and finds Hawkeye and Al and taunts Hawkeye that Mustang has been killed. And Lust did stab him through the stomach in a way that was quite gruesome. Hawkeye and Al had found Barry looking at his rotting body, and Barry is upset that the body is rotting because it's an important thing that the soul is being rejected by the body. And if it was like a rat or something that they put in it, so there's such a mismatch that it's just not keeping itself coherent. And Al learns that his soul is going to be rejected eventually. And I wonder if armor works better for attaching a soul to instead of another body, because the armor didn't have his soul already. So there's less of a rejection. As an explanation why Barry's body might be rotting within a couple of years, and Al's been in it for 4 or 5 years. There's that time length is different.
Yeah, there's probably a difference between an empty vessel versus something that had something that was already quote unquote meant for it in it, and then it's like shoving 2 opposing forces in versus just filling an empty space. Like eventually you'll decay, but you can stick around for a while.
Yeah. So Lust is taunting Hawkeye with Mustang's death, and Hawkeye despairs because she is supposed to be the one that gets attacked and injured and dead instead of Mustang. She's trying to protect him. And so then she's trying to get Al to run away and leave her to die after she empties all of her magazines and clips into Lust, and it's ineffective, but that's her thing, and that's what she's going to do. And Mustang commends Al on his resiliency when he appears, having self-cauterized his own wounds and using Havoc's lighter to be able to make fire. And Al immediately grabs Hawkeye and makes a giant wall of stone and protects her from the gigantic amount of fire that Mustang uses to melt Lust into death eventually, over and over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's plenty gruesome and kind of awesome. And, it shows, that if they bleed, you can kill it. But one of the other things that I liked before this, too, is when he was with Havoc and they were pinned down in the hallway and she uses the water. Like, doesn't he splits the water into hydrogen so that he can use it? And it's like, see, water is not your weakness. That's just a different kind of fuel,
Yes.
And that's how they were able to kind of survive and get away from her in the first place a little bit. And then, the other thing is, Hawkeye, like, this is why Hawkeye's my favorite, not because she's the most competent or anything like that, but she is going to die with her guns empty and thrown at your face before she dies, and, it's just a couple of scenes like that where it's like, oh, I like you, so
yes, we'll definitely get to that, your favorite moment in a couple of episodes.
Also, it should be noted that Mustang should have a lighter on him at all times anyway, just in case.
Right. Yes.
Right. That should just be part of his kit for sure.
Yeah.
So, yes, the gloves are important, but I've got backup Zippo.
Yes, I got some Zippos, some waterproof matches, a fucking flint, and
right,
whatever.
Right, because it's like that shit's waterproof, and if all he needs is the spark, that's what's in the Zippo anyway. Basically, right? It's basically a flint and steel in a different form, but it's
So
like,
and with him, fire begets fire.
magnesium.
Once it's there, he can just keep using it.
Right.
He does need the circle that's on the gloves, and so the gloves do
That's
two
right, because
purposes.
he carves it into his hand, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But like, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of alchemists to just do tattoos or scars or anything to make it permanent, just like Kimberly did, or scar. Yeah. Do that anyway. So
or they could just use the big alchemy circle they live in.
It's not completed yet.
It's not done yet. Exactly. Yep. There is science here that does make sense.
90% there, but that doesn't count. While Mustang is killing Lust, you can see Bradley in the shadows is about to like have walked in, and then he walks away unbeknownst to anyone else, but he is aware of everything. And that
it's
episode
the
ends
thing.
with,
I couldn't save her. Oh no.
Yeah. Ed had gone back to Risenbull on his way back from Xerxes, and he's visiting his mother's grave, and he sees Hohenheim there, and that's where the episode ends. So the next one starts out with Hohenheim confronting Ed of the human transmutation that they did. Why did they burn down his house? And he's just kind of like, Ed is angry because that's the father that he is angry wasn't around. And Hohenheim is like, what happened to my wife and house? And you did this thing to yourself. You did the thing that you're not supposed to do. But they're all staying at Pinaco's house, and Hohenheim is watching Ed sleep. And it feels like it's kind of obvious at this moment that, as estranged as they are, Hohenheim does really care about his sons. And even though they're strangers right now, Hohenheim makes a comment to Pinaco to make sure of like, the thing that they resurrected, was it actually Trisha? And going on, like, did they check like hair and body size and eye colors, anything like that? Yeah. And Pinaco was like, it wasn't human, it was a monster. It's like, but who was the person? Who was it? And Ed is horrified at this idea, but they go check after Hohenheim leaves, in which he took a specific picture that Pinaco had. It was the only one that had all four of them of that family together. And so Hohenheim asked to be able to keep it. And he warned Pinaco to get out of the country, and she refuses. This is her home. That's where she's going to stay.
My man Hohenheim's been looking at the map. So,
yeah, but you know what? His house is burned down. It's easy for him to say.
Right.
Where's he gonna? He can go anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, she's a auto mail mechanic. I gotta imagine they got either got auto mail in other countries, or if they don't, new industry. So she can bring auto mail to wherever.
Her reason for staying is that house is home to many people, because that is the place where the Elric brothers go back to, and Hohenheim goes back to. It's like she's staying there to keep the house for family.
Right.
But she goes with Ed the next day when it's raining to dig up the body, and they measure out things like the femurs and the height, and they look at the hair color, and the eyes are gone because it's just bones at this point. but it was male. It was far taller than Trisha would be. It had dark hair. It was not Trisha. And seeming very deranged, Ed is quite relieved.
Yeah, it's horrifying, but you also got to think, like, because of the way that their magic works and everything like this is the kind of analytical measurements they would have had to be able to recreate Mom's body in the first place, right? So it's like they probably knew every detail, like up to the point where in earlier episodes, like one of the first handful of episodes, they talk about how much ammonia is in the human body and all of this stuff. Like they had to go get measurements down to the raw ingredients, let alone probably measured her bones and stuff like that to make sure they got her right, if they did succeed. So
I don't think they dug her up because she was buried at that point, but
sure.
Yeah, it's they had all of the measurements of what a human body should have to try to make it. Different from their teacher, Izumi, she used the dead body of her child itself instead of having the ingredients. And he has called her to say, like, are you sure it was your child?
Right.
And she gets upset and she hangs up. But that comes back in a second. Pinako remembers that she was trying to tell Hohenheim Trish's last words.
She immediately had to go check.
Yes, the idea was important, and then she had to go look at things.
Oh, I mean, one is not the exclusive of the other. She's probably as upset at the idea as Ed was initially. But she does go check in the same way because, like, teacher like student.
Yeah. So Pinako asks Ed if he sees Hohenheim again to tell that Trisha's last words was, "I'm going on ahead. I'm going before you," because she was dying. That comes back several episodes later. Back in Central, Ed tells Al everything of Trisha's body and all that stuff, but that makes him quite certain that they can get Al's body back. And then they bring up the bet of, like, who gets to marry Winry, and because Winry and Al remember it, but Ed doesn't, that proves that Al is a real person. And then there was the moment of, like, well, why didn't Winry want to marry Al? Because she doesn't like men who are shorter than her, and Ed has a moment of being short and in pain.
But he's getting taller, and his shoulders are broadening out a little bit, and
So they're having big philosophical moments here. Like, Al was inside the body that they had put Trisha in. Both of them had put blood into the pile of ingredients, and so Al's soul got bound to that thing at one point, and he remembers this, and then it was rejected. And now that they know for certain that his soul is going to be rejected from the suit of armor. And then Izumi calls, and she looks through their genealogy, essentially, to kind of track, like, hair color and eye color, and to see, like, the thing that she resurrected could not possibly have been her child, which means they did not screw up. It is just impossible. It's not that they missed something. It's not that they weren't good enough alchemists. It is just straight impossible. So they are relieved that they didn't do anything to harm their loved ones again. She didn't kill her child a second time. And she thanks Ed. And then Winry has moments about, like, his shoulders are getting really broad.
Those twisted monstrosities of life are very happy.
Trying to recover in a hospital, Mustang is yelling at Hawkeye for despairing and giving up and not trying to fight to live, because he's very big on that, fight to live, even though she's upset, and she apologizes deeply. And Havoc also rages at Mustang for him doing crazy things and nearly getting himself killed. He should stop that too. Envy and Wrath are seen arguing about Mustang because he killed Lust, and so they should kill him. But Wrath is like, he should be an important person, not quite getting to the point of saying sacrifice, but important things. And then there's a moment of Hohenheim looking serious out of nowhere. And Ed is starting to theorize about, like, Al's body, if it's being cared for in some way, the lines between Ed and Al kind of got crossed, probably. And Ed eats way more than he should for his size, sleeps way more than he should, probably. And he's probably carrying on for giving nutrients to Al's body, wherever it is, to try to say that gives a reason why Al is not just rotting like Barry's body is.
And he definitely looks hale and healthy when you see him later.
Yeah, well, could be worse.
Oh, he could be dead. I'm just saying. He doesn't exactly look like he's been eating for 2.
It's hard to literally eat for 2, like 2 people that are the same size as you. Like when they say you're eating for, I was going to say, when they say you're eating for 2, it's usually referred to as a pregnancy, and that is a tiny bean, let alone, like imagine you were eating for your clone, that's a lot of food.
There was a time.
But I do appreciate the details, because I don't remember if it was before this or after, but like one of the ones that I caught where it was like they're in their travel house, whatever little inn or hotel that they're staying at, and Ed has the steak that is the size of a plate with this big old glop of butter on it, and it's like, that dude is way too small to be eating that much. And so you just kind of see it all, and then it also becomes a gag because Ed hates drinking milk. And so, it's like, maybe you'd be taller if you drank your milk. And it's like, it certainly wouldn't have hurt, that if you're literally eating for 2, like there are just all these little details that it's like, probably the reason why you're short still is because you're also, tied to your brother and, feeding his body wherever that is. And, really, if you had drank your milk, you would be taller, and but just
it's one of the I think it's the only time I can think, because usually just like the anime protagonist with a big ass appetite is just a shonen trademark.
It's just right,
and
but there's
Goku,
a reason
Naruto,
for it in this case.
Luffy, they all do this, but this one is actually like, oh no, we're gonna give you a reason.
Yes, right, calories matter.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So it's always like, I mean, you think about it with Benedict, right? Warrior Born and all of that stuff, right? And it becomes the teenage boy trope, like what you were saying, right? But it's like there's an actual plot, reason. Well, yeah, in this case, it's a plot reason anyway. So makes it a little bit more fun, a little bit more meaningful.
All right. Ed and Al get to talk to Mustang for a second. They know that there's something up with Bradley. They know about Wrath, but like, how far else does it go? And they kind of just have a moment of being careful. It comes out that Havoc needs to retire because he has been paralyzed. He cannot feel his legs. He can't move his legs. Lust has taken him out of the game, essentially. And Mustang kind of refuses to accept this, and Havoc loses his shit at him, and it's a emotional, tense moment. But then Mustang is seen trying to read a medical textbook to try to do medical alchemy. I don't know. He talks to Knox for a moment, his friend that was the coroner, and Knox makes a comment that they were now partners in crime for covering up Ross's death. Knox is fun. And he says something, no, hold on. Ed snuck a note to Mustang through Bretta about Dr. Marco, medical alchemist who might be able to save Havoc. And see, it switches to Scar in his Central. Ed told Al about the rock bells being killed by Scar. Ling is listening through the window again and eating a whole lot of room service, and he's going on about the homunculus and it's immortal and all of the things. Says everything. So he's like, let's all be involved at the same time. And Ed wants to do a plot essentially to get the homunculi out, and Scar is tracking him, and so we're going to do something really, really, really stupid. He tells Winry to stay around in Central because he might need her services really soon.
Gonk.
He's just, quite expecting that it's going to get broken. This is when she hits him, like, you're just planning on it going to be broken, and Al needs to grab his soul. So Mustang demands his uniform from Hawkeye to be able to put it on, even though he's still quite injured and should be in the hospital. He's going to go do things. Ed does stuff around the city to get Scar's attention, of like fixing vases and fixing potholes, and
don't forget, I'm the state alchemist, Edward Elric.
Yeah. There's a note that Marco is missing. They can't find him. That's important in a minute. And Scar attacks Ed as planned, being the gigantic target. They're fishing out the homunculi, and Ling and Lanfan kind of come through, and they start fighting Gluttony to try to and one of these immortals, they're going to fight, but then Wrath also gets involved. So it's Ling and Lanfan against Gluttony and Wrath. And Ling has a philosophical thing of like the king is for the people, and King Bradley just says, that's ridiculous. I'm going to kill you now.
Hey, listen, he's a Führer. Those
I know, right?
Yeah. King's my name, not my title.
It's all thematically on point.
I was going to say, actually, one of the Seven Deadly Sins characters, I think his name is King. He's the fairy king. You know, he's like Oberon or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's just named King. He's nicer, though.
With the pillow. I do believe so.
All right. Winry is with Alicia Gracia and is visiting Hughes's grave and also having thoughts about her parents that she's lost and very sad about it. And kind of as the thought that she was happy to have Hughes as like a stand-in father figure for the one that she lost. Ed and Al are fighting Scar all around the city, and there's a banter on philosophy, like the idea of creators versus destroyers, and Scar is kind of stuck on the destruction bit and not on the creation in any way. And Ed starts
because he only has the one arm, right?
Yeah,
isn't that the reason? Yeah.
Still, but I'll get there in a second. Ed starts demanding the story of what happened with the Rock Bells. Why did Scar kill them? Why did Scar kill these people who were helping him? They're such good people. They weren't going to hurt anybody. And he happens to say it quite loudly, even though Al is trying to make him stop. Right when Winry walks into the combat scene, and she learns this thing that Ed was trying to keep from her, that Scar killed her parents, that they were killed by a patient. And it shows Scar's memories of when he woke up not knowing what was going on. He sees the arm, he thinks his brother, and then he just kind of sees like the blue eyes that they had and how demonic it seemed to him, and he just started killing people, not really knowing what he was doing, and hateful. Showing more things of his brother, and his brother wanting to kind of having peace and fulfillment instead of the war crimes and rage and destruction, the way that the Ishvalans were reacting to their genocide of either trying to lash out against the Amestrians or do something helpful to everyone. Scar did at that point value help and caring. He was a warrior monk. He was trying to help his community in that way. Scar's brother was a nerd, a serious nerd of alchemy, and he had both of those arms of the tattoos, which there was that point in the original anime that the scars or the tattoos were a taboo in their religion. I think that was dropped in this version. So
that makes sense. But yeah, we prefer to call them wizards these days instead of nerds. So I mean,
he's a nerd.
If you could put on tattoos on your body and create and destroy shit, you're a wizard. But yes, wizard and nerd, the Venn diagram is pretty overlapping. It's just whether or not you're a nerd with powers or not, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So Scar and his brother and the rest of the people in this little bit of memory were attacked by Kimberly, who also had the scars on his tattoos on his hands to destroy a whole bunch of things. And Scar himself was going to die because he was going to bleed out from his arm having been shot off. So the brother uses the left arm of creation to transplant the right arm of destruction to his dying brother to save him. Very big thematic moments there. And Winry picks up a gun to point it at Scar and is like about to kill him to revenge her parents. And Scar doesn't want to hurt her because she's not a combatant. She's not his target of being a state alchemist, but warns her that if she tries to kill him, she will be a combatant and he will go after her just as anyone else. And in this moment, Ed jumps in between them and tries to protect Winry. And it was the same type of movement that Scar's brother had done to protect him. And it just makes him hesitate for a moment. He thinks of his brother and the love that he had for his brother and what Ed's desperation trying to protect Winry. It's enough to make him stop and go away for a minute. And Winry is upset that she wasn't able to kill Scar, but Ed says things of her hands are meant for healing, not for murdering. So he's trying to keep her hands clean and she should not be trying to hurt people. She gets frustrated that she's kind of sent away to start just waiting for all the combat to be done. And it's like, why is the only thing I can do is wait
Well, because about 20 minutes after the waiting is the screaming and the bleeding, and then you've got to do the healing. That's why.
Yeah.
So
yeah. She gets a bit more involved in some things, but not yet. Not in this section. Let's see. Mustang and Hawkeye have a comment about, like, there's a house outside the city. They'll meet there. And Hawkeye tells Mustang, don't go into combat because he's still injured and limping around. He cauterized his own wounds, but that doesn't mean that they're healed. Lanfan is injured, and she gets creative in the fight against Wrath and does the same thing that Ed did. And she cuts off her injured arm, attaches it to a stray dog so that Gluttony is following her scent to the wrong place. And now she's armless and running through a sewer, but it was enough of a distraction, the same trap that he had done to get away from things. May arrives to help Scar get out of the fight. Hawkeye arrives in a car to get Ed and Al in the car. And as this whole thing, Wrath is there to see that Hawkeye was in a disguise, but he recognizes her anyway. And Al somehow got the tiny panda Xiao Mei and doesn't know what to do with it. Eventually leading to Xiao Mei trying to bite to Al. It's like, wait, I can't eat you. That means that you're more important to me.
You are the alpha.
Well, this is why pandas, are an endangered species.
Because they keep trying to eat suits of armor.
Yes. Also, if they don't grow bigger than shoulder size, I mean...
That's just that one because it's had a disease.
Wow. Colin, what's her face a disease, huh?
Winry gets a call from Garfield from Rush Valley and has a moment of people do like her and all the healing that she does is really important. She wants to go back there. And then Ed tries to promise her that the next time she cries, it will be from happiness. Hard promise to keep, but eventually they all go to that.
Her emotions. So, yeah,
Right.
Women.
They all meet up again at that house that Mustang and Hawkeye had talked about, and Nox is there yelling at Lanfan for having cut off her arm and walked around in a sewer. It's like, are you just trying to die of sepsis? But they, in the argument of who gets to have Gluttony, because he's been bound up and captured, Gluttony hears Mustang's name, and he loses his shit because Mustang is the one who killed Lust, and Lust was Gluttony's babysitter. And this is now inside the belly when the belly opens up and it's its whole crazy portal thing and just swallows up half of the house and destroys it. And Hawkeye was just outside, and this is Justin's favorite moment.
More or less, it's definitely my favorite Hawkeye moment, right? Because basically the building's collapsed because Gluttony ate half of it and whatever. And, there's these big rivets of like ground that have just been devoured by the portal and everything like that. And so she sees giant monsters, so she pulls gun, and it's like, what are you going to do with that, right? But then the Elric brothers come out of the debris, and she just like cross draws because she's like, I'm too busy for this shit, but you're going to get a bullet too. So, until she realizes that, oh wait, they're my allies, they're with me. So, but yeah. Just the unthinking, automatic, must shoot second monster,
While this is all happening, there was a moment of Wrath walking around in Central being the Fuhrer or whatever, and Pride, I think this is the first appearance, starts taunting him of like all of these things of going wrong. You're letting the humans do bad things, whatever. And Wrath tells him to give the humans their credit of what they've been able to do. It's not that they're idiots running around, it's that they are also capable. Kind of a taunting that it might be the younger generation's time soon, because Pride is the oldest of the homunculi, and Wrath would be the youngest, and the humans are young, obviously. So fun little moment. And there's also a moment that Envy has Marco hidden in a cell somewhere, and they're taunting Marco about having a village that he's going to have hostages, and something about the sacrifices. Marco's trying to figure out everything that's going on, and he would rather die than help them, but he doesn't want to let the village to be killed, because if he kills himself, they'll kill the village. Back in the combat, Mustang is declared useless and injured, and he is kicked out by like everyone. Everyone says, you get in that car and you go home. You are not allowed to fight anymore. They take Mustang and Ling, or Lanfan, Nox, and they all go with Hawkeye. Ling and Ed and Al stay behind to try to fight Gluttony, and Gluttony is seriously scary. Even though they kind of know what he is, like that is even scarier than he was. And then Envy shows up as a dog and then starts talking to them and taunting them and everything. And he makes it clear that the Elrics are not ones that you can eat, but Ling is okay, so go for it. In the confusion of all this, there's a note that Envy's body is abnormally heavy. And when he steps in something or he falls into something, it like makes more of an impact that a body that size should. And then Gluttony swallows up Ling and Ed and Envy, as well as like part of Al's hand, which means that Al can't do the alchemy without like chalk and transmutation. He can't, missing a hand, it kind of makes it not happen.
To circle back a little bit, one of the things that I liked about this too was like the Elric brothers immediately twigged to the fact that it's like they're not allowed to be eaten, so they use that to their tactical advantage and start like chasing Gluttony, and it's like, we can kick your ass but you can't eat us, like, you know. So I thought that was hilarious, because it's like usually like, oh well, you know, we'll do the honorable thing and we'll leave, and they were like, no, we're going to capitalize on this. So
yeah, why fight fair?
Right.
Right. Mustang thinks that if all he can do is talk, he's going to start talking to people, I guess, and he reports to Raven, who is his now direct superior, and he's trying to dig at and give hints at to the idea of homunculi and corruption in the higher echelons of the military government, and there's banter back and forth of it, and then he walks straight into a meeting with all of the important people, all of the top generals and brass, with Führer, with Wrath, and Wrath says things like, is there a problem with the Führer being a homunculi? And everyone is already in the know, and Mustang's just completely walked into it.
Again about this joke.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. And that episode ends with Ed waking up in the blood and the darkness after having been swallowed. And so the next one is in Doorway of Darkness. How do they get out of this thing? Ling and Ed find each other, immediately have suspicions that either one of them is Envy pretending to be the other one. And so how do they verify identity? Well, Ling offers to recite the food menu at the hotel that he's been running up the bill for. And
okay,
then Ed is... Yeah. And Ed is unhappy about being short. And it's like, yep, that's your neuroticism. There you go.
I mean, who doesn't know that about Ed, though? Seriously?
It would be easy thing to fake.
I was going to say, of all the people that do, Envy would be a primary one, since all they do is taunt them about it.
Right.
Let's see. So May is looking for Xiaomei the panda, who's still with Al out in the forest. Scar's helping because he wants to help the little girl find her pet that she's so sad about, and it's got the backstory of her. And Yoki explains some things about Scar and why he might want to help. Al has no idea what to do out in the middle of the forest with Gluttony, knowing that he can't eat Al, but the panda is okay to be eaten. And so it's like running around each other while Al is just like being very unhappy. And then Gluttony kind of gives the idea of like, well, we could go talk to Father. Who is Father? And they start going back to Central. Ed and Ling eat dinner of a boot, which was, as Ling was paranoid to ask about, not the human foot, but the automail foot boot of Ed's, that one.
Yeah, no Edley's foot, please.
Yeah.
The other one would have had more protein, though.
Probably. Envy shows up and he kind of explains that Gluttony was an attempt of building one of those doors of truth. It is a dimension of attempting to create a false one, but it failed. More backstory, and Envy reveals that he was the soldier.
Well, I think that the door of truth thing, I think, fits very nicely in with what we find out later about the homunculi being parts of the father that he's trying to excise from himself.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to be able to do true alchemy himself. And so that part of the anthropology of the show is there's this whole, you have a door of truth within you. So he's trying to do that for himself, but he can't. And so it's just, that's why gluttony is just discarded.
Well, and it's also, he seems like he came from a world behind a door of truth too, where he doesn't want to go back to. So
whatever that is, exactly.
So it's twofold.
Exactly. Well, it's true. So if he did do human transmutation himself, then he might be dragged back. Outside from perhaps this, I guess there's some way that this doesn't. His big plan doesn't involve that, or he only has one shot to really try that.
Not throwing away my shot.
The dwarf in the flask. Yeah, it fits together very nicely. The show moves so briskly. I fell asleep halfway through an episode once on this rewatch, and I was at a completely different point. I was like, "Whoa, what did I miss?" I only missed like 5-6 minutes.
Right.
It's compact.
I've been thinking about
this period when like Gluttony has a fight scene with them, eats them. Mustang ends up at the place, and is just going to trying to talk to Grumman. We're trying to talk to try to talk to General Raven, and then General Raven immediately outs him at tea time with the Fuhrer. So like there's so much that happens so quickly through the show. It's definitely one. It's definitely not like other anime where it just kind of dawdles. Can't miss a moment.
Okay.
Sorry.
Because
you're talking about Envy.
Nearly done. Nearly.
Okay. Yes.
Right. Envy was the soldier that killed the little girl that started the Ishvalan War. He disguised himself as the Mestrian soldier and pulled out a gun and just killed a little girl out of nowhere.
Shot that fucking kid.
Yep. And completely unrepentant. He doesn't give a shit. They're basically all like gonna just try to fight to the death because they're bored, and what else can they do? They can't get out. And so they're fighting. Mustang is talking to Bradley about everything, and Bradley says this thing that Selim, his son, will never be an avenue to hold against him. But Mustang's people are avenues to hold against Mustang. And so all of his people have been taken away and sent to all the different fighting zones and just being away from him. And Hawkeye especially is now going to be the assistant to the Fuhrer and with him at nearly all times. The last episode of this section of 26 is labeled Reunion. And while they're fighting, Ed despairs and he kind of gives up and he's trying to die in the same way that Hawkeye does, but that Al doesn't. But as he gets swallowed by envy, he eventually sees the Philosopher's Stone that's kind of his core. And he gets an idea. And so he punches out one of Envy's teeth and says, it's like, let me out of here. It stinks. I have an idea to get out. Scar and May are still searching, and they start to go down to where Al is also converging with Gluttony down to where Father is. And May is kind of just figuring out in the same way that Xiao Mei is that there's bad things happening down here and it's scary. So kind of just following all the places where they don't want to go to. Bradley's backstory is given as he's explaining it to Mustang that he had no idea where he came from, but he was raised with other people to be the Fuhrer of the country in a lab. And at some point when he was like in the late teens or 20 something, he was given the Philosopher's Stone that is Wrath from Father and became the entity of Wrath. He's not sure if he's the same soul that he was. He doesn't care that he doesn't know who he was. He was given the name at the point that it succeeded and just like, okay, you are going to be the leader of this country. That's what you are.
He got the super soldier serum and now he's just Dark Captain America.
Yeah. And everyone else that the people who were attempted to take the homunculi in and it failed, they were dead. Who cares? And the other ones were just still kept around because they're now goons, but we don't see them for a long time. Mustang asks if Wrath could just live life as a human, and Wrath is like, why would he? It's clearly a superior form to be a homunculi. He has less degradation for age, although he has aged. Homunculi have pride just like humans do. Was Lust not a prideful woman when she died? there's a discussion of all of the ritual stuff that Envy is trying to gather up those like the rocks that showed what happened in Xerxes, essentially. And Ed is explaining things and also confronting Envy of like, if you put all this stuff together, like the lion is trying to eat the sun, and the sun is the Philosopher's Stone, and the Philosopher's Stones are people, and Xerxes was a country that disappeared overnight. What happened to all of these people? Who did this thing, this atrocity and genocide? And Envy says, I'll tell you if we make it out of here. But Envy needs to cooperate, because for them to do a human transmutation of themselves, to disassemble and recombine themselves, to pass through the doorway to get out of gluttony, they need a toll. And they don't want to give up any parts of their bodies. And Envy is a Philosopher's Stone, so using that as the toll is how they get through. When they're about to do it, Ling sees Ed put his hands together to do the transmutation circle and has the thought of, that pose looks like they're praying to God. And with the themes of the ritual, it's all kind of ties together. And Ed is trying to guide himself back through the doorway of like, his mind is attached to his body. If he's just kind of letting it go through, he'll get to the same doorway. And when he gets like spit out of the door, he sees Al. And there was a separate doorway, a second one already there. And we see Al's body that is taller, older, emaciated. His hair is long and he does not look healthy. And Ed is trying to take Alphonse out, but Al says that he can't go with them because you are not my soul. You're not my body. It's not the one I get to go to. And Ed gets swallowed up by all the whatever hands it is up behind this door of truth, and then busts it open again just to say, I'm coming back for you. Yeah.
Cool.
And that is the end of this section.
Yay.
I think I felt like the first 15 episodes where it had a bit more of an arc than this 12 episode stretch. But it does have a nice little opening the door at the same time kind of synchronicity and this big cliffhanger. And I don't know. There's a lot of really weird stuff I forgot in this show. And this is where it really starts getting very different, especially with I don't know how much you talked about Ling and Jing and Fu and Len Fan. I think those are all their actual names. But the nice little hints at the future backstory. One of the best episodes of the series is going to be the dwarf in a jar, and there's so much preparation for that reveal with the sage from the east and the sage from the west. And what happens with Xerxes is going to happen in Mistress. But if they're already revealing that, there's something more going on. There has to be a bigger reveal. At what point did Ed actually figure out the Mistress was a transmutation circle yet?
Not yet, no.
I haven't figured that out.
Yeah, I mean the parts are all there for us a couple of times, but definitely by Xerxes was where I started to put it together, I think. And
Marco in his conversation with Envy just says it outright. And is that when we first find out about it as an audience? It's really shocked me that there's so much dramatic irony that we know that they don't. And then sometimes the show doesn't cook with it, like with the whole reveal that Mace Hughes is dead. We know it, but Ed and Al don't for about 5 minutes once they get back. They get lied to and then immediately figure it out in the next conversation. And Winry, of course, is visiting the widow at the same time. So
yeah, Marco did put it together. He was trying to guess, like, what is it they're doing? Why do you need me around? Are you just doing another human transmutation circle of this whole thing? And Envy, it's like, you're really, really close, but it doesn't matter. It's just taunting him.
True.
Yeah. And it's like all of the people who are involved, these characters are smart. They are clever. They're able to put it together. That's how Macy was able to figure it out so fast. But you do still need to like have the thought of this is important information in this way to actually start it. And that's going to happen in the next section, I believe.
Yeah. How much, why did they write in that whole interaction between Ed and Al and Mustang when Mustang lied about Hughes going off to the country with a double promotion or something like that? Well, not double, but the double promotion he found out from Maria Ross.
That was
like from a creative perspective, why would you have your characters do that?
Mustang wanted to try to control Ed and Al away from doing anything stupid, and like if their friend was dead, they're gonna go after revenge. They're gonna get in the way of his stuff, and he also felt bad that they're still kids. And Hawkeye made a comment to him that this kindness from him is actually a cruelty, instead of treating them with depth that they needed.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Mustang found them, right? So he's also trying to protect them maybe a little bit, but as much as anything, he knows
universe. I get in universe, but the universe didn't have to be this way. Arakawa didn't have to
write.
The
characters do what they're going to do. Like, that could be the answer, because to me, in universe is the only reason that I care about, right? I don't think the author just invented some reason for, Mustang to lie to the main characters. I think it's one of those things that you would see normal people doing, right? And, the answer is one or both of protecting them / keeping them. Ed's absolutely a hothead, right? And I like the director's explanation even better than mine, in the sense that it's like he's going to run off and do something reckless, and that's going to be a problem, right?
Also, that entire interaction could have been its own chapter in the manga, and then the next chapter is when they find out. So that's, it's a different pacing where it's condensed into 2 minutes here.
It's true,
but it's still an element.
Yeah, that's I guess it's one of the challenges of adaptation. This is one moment I probably would have smoothed over better with just having them find out directly, or if I change the setting of the conversation to. So I'm not sure it needed to be this big lie. That's a cruelty, dramatic setup, and then tension gone.
I mean, it wasn't all that big, actually. It's like Mustang had the idea that he needed to control them and keep them out of the fight for multiple reasons. He did something that he thought was kind.
Yeah.
And I mean, it didn't last for very long, but also when they learned that it was a lie, they were not angry at Mustang. They understood.
Sure. Maybe that was the way you think of to keep your characters from doing that thing, is to have this lie, and so the characters have to figure out why were we just lied to, and that gives them pause. If that's the trick, that's the trick. But just to keep the characterization makes sense, because if they did go off to this big revenge plot, then that would cause problems. But then again, of course, the very first thing that happens next, as I recall, is Scar's back in town. After that kind of conversation settles and the resolve is moved forward, then Scar's back. You have that interrupt things.
Now, the next thing that happens is Ross gets arrested for Hughes' death.
Oh, that's true. You're right. Right. That's right. But that can't happen until they know that Hughes is dead.
Yeah.
So, okay, no wonder. Yeah.
I mean, it sets up them having more of a connection with her, and then Mustang, and then them thinking that he took vengeance, and so that creates more tension. But then they get separated immediately because Ed goes off to Xerxes, and
right.
So
I'm really looking for that middle thing. I wanted to keep watching, even though I knew the very next episode is a clip show. I wanted to keep watching because, what a great little story. And it seems a lot smaller of a story in this rewatch than it did when I was first watching it, but it's still very satisfying in its way. It doesn't waste your time.
It's dense. It has a lot of things compacted into not that many minutes.
Do you think, is it still about growing up? I think for the first episode, I had this idea that maybe the show really is just about growing up and growing past kind of your adventure and power, and just kind of settling down, because he does settle down. He gives up the alchemy. And this kind of power fantasy alchemy thing is what the whole show is about, and really what the villain wants as well, is basically an adolescent power fantasy. The dwarf of the jar wants to become human and become God. This is this huge power fantasy that is then upset, and at the end, he gives it up. But does it? You found the characters grasping for immortality. All the Chinese characters are grasping immortality at this point in the show. The Panda Girl and the Prince.
Well, their motivations, they're looking for immortality so that they can become the heir and therefore protect their villages and their families, their factions. They're not looking for immortality for themselves.
That's true. Alchemistry is more healthy, I suppose, and the whole society's kind of.
They want to bring stability to their region, like their country.
Yeah,
and they see immortality as that's how we're gonna do it.
Well, no, they need immortality to give to the emperor to be able to be named as the successor.
They have different ways of kind of seizing power and fighting conflict with other characters. Ed and Al originally only wanted their mother back because their father had abandoned them out of bitterness. They used alchemy to try to bring your mom back.
The motivations of almost everybody is going to be some amount of wanting to protect the people that they care about, and that can be their family, their factions, their villages, their beloved country, or their military.
It's a revenge, and he kind of realizes he's become the madman and the murderer, but it is a love of Ishval and that principally motivates him. That's twisted. But with Father, it's just the power grab without the higher motives.
Mm-hmm. I think we'll talk about that in several weeks.
I suppose so. Well, cool. Thanks for having me on. Finally get the microphone working. Apparently the driver borked out the driver update ruined the microphones. I had to completely install and tool, and didn't even recognize this thing as a microphone, just as a speaker. Very frustrating. So
that is frustrating.
Works now though.
All right, so
well, is there anything else before I do the plug? Anything else?
What's on for next week with Dresden Files podcast? Writer's Room.
We're doing
Death Masks Part 2.
Death Mask Part 2. Yep. And that will be another 20% or so of the book.
That is a great book. That is a great little book.
Yeah, we made it through chapter 6, I think, and I've already read through up to chapter 12. So, I'm on pace and everything. If I get through 16, that's where I wanted to be. But I don't think we're going to be able to talk about that much, but at least we'll have the opportunity. Some of the chapters are pretty short. They're just like Dresden goes home and gets mad about something or gets gear or whatever, So.
Oh, wait, Death Masks is the one where Dresden gets a daughter, right?
Well, yes.
That's where a daughter
machine kicks off.
A daughter's conceived.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I would have described it as where he
HBO
Arians, but
HBO treatment, huh?
I mean, it's as if we didn't need it from Stormfront from the very get-go, right? This is another strong. Not to mention the follow-on book. That's like, oh, you like the BDSM, do you? What if it was the whole book? So
yeah, not to mention. Well, I mean, maybe it's less so, but Summer Night with Mab just comes in and does the femme fatale thing. Isn't that the start of Summer Night after his trial?
She's a hottie, but she's like in a business suit and stuff. She's not really doing the. I guess femme fatale is not the wrong word, but I wouldn't say it's going to increase the ratings or anything. So
femme fatale is trying to be seductive as a disguise and getting power that way. She was just the ice queen in a business suit, looking a little bit less than human. That's not the same thing.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, it's very noir with the whole of all the offices and all the world. She had to walk into mine, so that's how that always starts. But
sure.
And I mean, ultimately, Mab is a femme fatale. She's killed many, many people in the last 1,000 years. So
they all had it coming, according to Alex, probably because the she can do no wrong.
More or less than Barry the Chopper.
More.
Well, given the war with the outside.
Outsiders aren't people, just like homunculi aren't people. You can shoot them with impunity.
She's got a whole army of choppers, I'm sure. So,
A red cap.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to find out more about our thoughts on this, you can go to our Discord. You get to our Discord through our Patreon, patreon.com/Broken Jars, and you can catch us live every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, and leave us a comment, like us on YouTube, listen to us on your favorite podcast app. That's
and
it.
for 2 weeks from now, we're watching through episode 38. So watch along with us from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Or don't, in case something comes up and we have to cancel again.
Yeah.
That was